Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Okay, I'm just going to say right off the bat, I did not love it, and I was really hoping I would. So this book came out in 2018. It's 458 pages long. It has currently on Goodreads a 3.87 out of 5, and I gave it a 3 out of 5. It wasn't horrible, but it was so confusing that I think that really took away from the plot for me personally. And I've read a lot of reviews on Goodreads of people saying that they loved how confusing it was, and I thought that was like fun. I am not one of those people. So I didn't know anything about this book. I picked it up at Barnes & Noble a long time ago and finally decided to read it this past month. I was really excited. I loved the first chunk of it, like probably this much of the beginning. I thought this was like the coolest book I've ever read. This is gonna be so good. And the farther I got into it, the more I just wanted it to be done. The middle part is pretty slow, pretty confusing. It's just a long book, like in general. So I didn't know anything about this when I read it. So the beginning is a bit confusing, so I'll just explain the plot without giving away any major spoilers. But this man who doesn't quite know his own identity until halfway through the book, it's a little bit like Groundhog's Day, where this man keeps waking up and reliving the same day over and over and over, except every time he wakes up, he's in the body of a different person. So it's called the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle because this person, and we find out later his name is Aiden. That's not a spoiler, it's on the back of the book. Aiden is waking up in a different person's body every day for 8 days. And essentially he has 8 days, 8 different hosts to solve this murder, or he will be trapped in this infinite loop forever. And that's where it gets really confusing. So the first body he wakes up in, he realizes that he's stuck in this loop, okay? Second body he wakes up in, now he's a completely different person. But it's the same day, and he is still trying to solve this murder from the point of view of a different person. And the reason all these people are at this house is because they're throwing a party. The Hardcastle family is throwing a party, and Evelyn dies at the end of the night. And Aiden has 8 days and 8 different hosts to figure out who murdered her. And if he can tell his boss, you'll know what that means if you read it, who it is by the 8th day, he's free to go back to his own body. It was so confusing because he wakes up in a different body every morning. But if the body he's currently in falls asleep or is knocked unconscious by some violence, he wakes back up in a different body. So there's a lot of, he doesn't always spend a full day in each person's body. There's a lot of jumping back and forth where he's the butler and now he's a policeman, but now he's the butler again, and now he's this guy and now he's a butler again, and that got really confusing. And also, apparently there's other people also trapped in this time loop, and they're racing each other to figure out the murder. I'm still really unclear about that part. So what I liked about this book was that I've never read anything like it before. I've read a couple books where obviously you wake up at you're reliving the same day over and over, but I've never read one where you're reliving it from the point of view of a different person every day. That was pretty cool. And what I also liked about it was that when he wakes up in the body of this new person, he retains some of their personality traits. Like when he wakes up in the body of the policeman, he's really clever and he can think really clearly, but he wakes up in the body of a guy who's always drunk and he can't think as clearly, and they each have their own personality, and that personality either helps him or hinders him in solving this murder. Another thing I liked was the murder is not what it seems at all. I don't want to spoil that, but when he figures out who he's trying to save, he's like, that wasn't a murder, what am I trying to solve? So that was pretty cool. That's kind of the only thing I liked about this book. Things I didn't like, too many details. There are so many things happening, and it's all happening in the same day, but in a different order. And like Aiden is like leaving himself notes to his future self and to his former self, and so he's finding these notes, and like you don't always remember who left what and what clue came where and who's who and why, and there's a lot of people in this book. It's very confusing. When books have to do this thing where they list the characters for you and who they, and look how many there are. When books have to do that, you know it's gonna get confusing. And this didn't even help, was the problem. I'd be like, okay, who's that again? I'd flip to the front and I'm like, I still don't remember. Too many people, too many details. It was super confusing. And another thing I didn't love was towards the end, you find out why Aiden is trapped in this time loop, except you don't really find out why. Like you find out why, but I wish he would have told us more about why Aiden specifically is stuck in this loop and what's gonna happen to him when he gets out of it. You know, I didn't think that was explained very clearly. I mean, I didn't like that part. It was very, very long, and it sometimes, where's my cat? And sometimes it was super slow. And there were times where I felt like I was forcing myself to read it just because I needed to finish it. Like right around here, I was like, you know, oh, I'm so confused. This is so long. There's so many details. I don't understand what's happening, but I'm gonna keep reading so that I can just finish it and find out what happens. And there is a twisteroo at the end, but it was not the coolest twist by any means. It's been done before, I'll just say that. Overall, when I finished the book, I was just kind of annoyed, which is upsetting to me because I really wanted to love this book and I just didn't. That being said, though, I didn't hate it either. It was just so dense and so confusing that it was hard for me to enjoy it. It felt like at times it felt like a chore to read it. That sounds, sorry, Stuart, I know this is your first book, but I wasn't a huge fan. So, The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, not to be confused with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If you like being super confused and you like murder mysteries, give this one a read. I've seen it compared to Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie at least wraps up her novels where you know exactly what happened and who did it and why. This didn't have that quality, where at the end I still was like, huh? Short, simple review. It was fine. And last thing I'm gonna say, there's a quote in here by Aiden's boss. I'm just gonna say, he's a plague doctor. It's weird, but he says, too little information and you're blind. Too much and you're blinded. I was blinded. So give it a read if you feel like it or not. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody who, like I would not recommend this to my mom. She would hate it. I told my sister about it. She's probably not gonna read it. But if it's on your TBR and you think you still wanna read it anyway, let me just tell you now, it's confusing AF, but still kind of enjoyable. So that is my review on this book. Yikes.